Hello everyone. Welcome. Today for my live stream this week, I thought I would play with a stamp set from Waffle Flower. This is the Love Thanks stamp set and it's in collaboration with JJ Bolton. I just thought these greetings were so great. And so I thought maybe I could do, I was thinking kind of like a card set where maybe there's a bunch of these greetings used, maybe on like 5 cards. So I was trying to come up with something that was more simple, that would be easy to create with. And so I was actually a little bit inspired by these rainbow stripes on the packaging. I thought, what if I just did some simple kind of landscape cards that had strips of color on the bottom and then just a simple greeting stamped on it. I'm sort of on a kick of doing lots of like duplicate cards, like card sets. I'm kind of on a roll with that recently, so I thought, why not? And there are a few different ways that you could do really colorful stripes. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. There are a few different ways you could do it with cardstock. You could do it with washi tape. You could do it with scraps of cardstock, watercolor, anything like that. You know, it'd be fun if they were all that faux dip dye. I could get on board with that. Like all faux dip dye. Let's do that. Got my Fabriano Artistico Extra White. And I'm just going to peel up. All right, I'm going to cut this into 4 pieces, just equal. And then like I've done in the past with faux dip dye, I'm going to be tearing off the bottom edge off of each one. So I'm just going to cut this into quarters, and it is 9 by 12 right now. So I'm going to make these 6 by 4.5. Okay, so if you've ever seen actual dip dye, the thing that's kind of fun about them is that they're on a very heavyweight cotton paper. Generally, the bottom has like a deckled edge. So you could tear it, or you could even use the Tim Holtz decal trimmer. In fact, you know what? Let's just do that today. Instead of tearing it, let's do the decal trimmer just to do something a little bit different. We'll just try it with the decal trimmer. So let's see, do I want them landscape? I'm trying to think here. If I have a greeting up here and then colored out the bottom. I'm thinking I kind of want a portrait. So I'll just trim off. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. I'm only having like this much hang off the end here. And then you get sort of that rough edge at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to grab my Kuretake Zig Gum, let's see, whatever it is. It's been such a long time since I've used it, I can't even remember how to say it. Kuretake Zig Gansai Tambi palette. There we go. It's this one. That if you've been around for a while, you probably have picked this up. It was really, really popular a few years ago. Everyone was using it. We probably have it in our stash. So we're going to break it open. I love this purple. I'm clear down to the bottom. And I love that red. And we're probably going to use them today. So I do have swatches on the inside. So I'll be using those right there. So I'm just going to start painting. And I'm just going to bring this one color all the way down. In fact, I'm going to add a little more water. Kind of soften that top edge. Bring that down. Okay, so this one's going to be pink to purple. Get that really diluted, and we'll just start. Yeah, that's almost how pale I wanted the other one to be. Just bring this all the way down to the bottom. And we'll just come in right here and just paint all the way down. Add a little water to that, and then get a nice painted line going across. Okay, these first 2 were much easier to dry since I had a little more time to air dry. So I'm going to come back into my red shade and I'm going to paint across, almost at a diagonal. And just start bringing that down. Okay. So I'm bringing the color all the way to the bottom. And then as I start painting, the colors at the bottom will just naturally get darker and darker. It's a nice, bright, sunny yellow. You hardly can see the previous pale layer. And if you get like a linear pattern going across this, it's totally okay because it kind of lends itself to that. Okay, back to that red shade. Hello, Editing Christina here. I've decided to speed this up and talk you through it because it was just way too long to not edit it down. So essentially what I'm doing for each one of these is I have sort of a 2-color, maybe into 3-color combination for them. So for example, for this next one I'm working on, it's going to go blue to purple. So as I start adding layer upon layer of color, I want to slowly transition from the color 1 to color 2. So right now I'm just intensifying that red shade. And then as I move on to the aqua color, I'm actually going to mix in a little bit of the blue shade into it to just start to transition to the blue. This one's going from like an aqua sea green to a blue shade. So that's why I'm transitioning. For the yellow, I want it to go from yellow to orange. So I'm mixing a little bit of orange in with the yellow. And then as I put that next layer down, it just starts to transition the color. For this blue, I'm going to do the same thing with the purple. I'm going to put just a little bit of purple into it, and then that goes on as the next layer. In between every single one of these layers, I'm using my heat tool to make sure everything is dry. That's how you can get like that really sharp edge at the very top of each section. If you don't do that, the paper is still wet and it would just start to blend in and soften. So now I'm going back in with some more of that red. And it's time to start transitioning to the purple. So I'm getting a nice puddle of red, and then I'm going to add purple to it. And I want to make sure that it doesn't go purple too quickly, so I add more red in the end. Start to paint that on. And I think I'm going to do one more layer on the aqua, and then I decide I'm not going to keep switching from panel to panel. I'm just going to finish one at a time. So I'm adding more of that blue into the aqua shade. And then I'll paint that right on top. You can see we're starting to get a nice transition of color. So I dried those, and then I'm going to stick with just the red one for now. It's quickly transitioning to purple, so I'm going to do a few more layers and dry each one in between. Making sure this one has a nice flat color, and so it's not too splotchy. And I'm going to hit this with my heat tool until everything's completely dry. Like I said, I want that nice sharp line at the top of each section. And I was starting to get a splatter paint on the other side, so I've tipped my board here so that I can prevent more of that splashing. I'm now going almost straight in with the purple, and at this point it's starting to intensify that purple so much that I know I'm going to have to transition to an even darker color. So I've started mixing in a little bit of black, and that starts darkening up that purple shade. Coming to the very bottom of that panel, it's completely black. The very last stripe I'm going to add here is all black, and I'm painting all the way off the edge. So I'm going to hit this with my heat tool, and then that panel is completely done. So now I'm going to move on to the aqua to blue. And at this point, I have hardly any of that aqua shade that I'm using. I'm mostly going into the blue shade. And I actually had to switch blues because I was running out of the one particular blue. So I've switched to a different shade in my palette, and I've mixed that in with the aqua. And I'm doing the exact same thing that I did on the pink to purple transition. Just as I go down, I'm using more and more of that second shade. And this one also needed to have black at the bottom of it to really intensify that blue, because after a while it just became just the blue shade and there was nowhere to go. So I did have to bring in some of that black. And I really love how it intensifies pretty quickly once you get near the bottom of the watercolor paper. So I continued on. I did a couple more sections, adding more and more of that black, and then I was completely done with that section. I'm going on to the yellow to orange, and I'm getting a nice yellow puddle of paint, adding in some orange. And then as I start painting this one, I'm going to start transitioning from yellow to orange to red. I'm going to start bringing in more red so that I can start getting a darker orange shade. So I'll just keep continuing adding red. And then once it gets to the point where there's nowhere for the red to go, I will start mixing in a little bit of a cool toned brown. And that's going to give me that nice shade transition near the bottom of the card. So I'm using brown all along the bottom there until it mostly is just that straight brown color. I even put in a little bit of black just to get it really dark. For my fourth panel, I'm going from blue to purple. So I mixed in some purple into that blue. And this one actually very quickly transitions to black also, because the blue and purple are so similar in intensity that the only place for it to go is to black. So I actually did start mixing in black much sooner on this transition than the others. And I have a nice black streak down there at the bottom. Okay. Ooh, hello. That took like almost an hour. But you know what though? For 4, that's not bad. I'm going to be doing stamping to finish these off, but first I need to decide exactly how I'm going to cut them down for my cards, because I do want that deckled edge on the bottom. So I'm thinking I'll just run it through my die cutting machine and then I can get them centered exactly where I want them. So do a slightly smaller than an E2 card, and then I can account for the deckled edge at the bottom. Am I going to have room for, I guess I could do the grading at the bottom, the dark area. I love that idea. We'll do that. We'll do the gradings at the bottom in the dark area, maybe in like a metallic gold or silver. I love that. All right, so I'm going to run these through my die cutting machine because I want them to all be different. So how about we'll do Sending My Love on this one. Just down in the bottom corner. I'm going to be using Versamark ink. And I think I'm going to do gilded embossing powder for everything, so a gold. And because this is watercolor paper, well, actually, that looks like it's stamped pretty well. So let's just, you know what? We're going to do them all at the same time. I did a video earlier this week where I showed like stamping 4 cards in Versamark and then doing the heat embossing on them. And there were some people wondering about like if you could still do the heat embossing if it wasn't like immediately after stamping. And you definitely can. This one says happy birthday. So here's our first one. All right, last thing to do is put these on some card fronts. So here are all 4 cards. I think they turned out even better than I had hoped. They turned out fantastic. The gold embossing is just enough of the shine to help them look finished. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to be back next Friday for a live at my normal time, but I will be doing a little bit of traveling and I'm not sure what the situation will be at that point. So I might not be live. I might just have a recorded video for you. So either way, I'll be back with something for you next Friday. I hope you'll tune in. Thanks so much for watching and I'll catch you guys next time.